Hello. This is OverlordBou. We're back with more World of Warships content, and today we'll be covering the newest cruiser line coming to World of Warships, the Commonwealth cruiser line. Today in this video, we'll be watching the Cerberus replay while I talk about the line and the ship itself. We'll go over the play style of the ships, and I'll go over the recommended builds at the end of the video. Now, to start off with, I think this line is a tremendously fun line to play with its crawling smoke screen gimmick. I believe that this line is a really good beginner line. It's really simple to play, not overly complex. You pretty much farm in the smoke screen. It's good practice to be able to make sure that players are moving in smoke screens, using their hydros correctly. And you can also get very high damage number matches in this ship. So even though it's great for beginners, it's also great for those damage hungry junkies that really want that really high damage, the really experienced players. Normally when I was playing this ship, I streamed it for about 6 or 7 hours. I was averaging about 130 through about 160k damages normally for most of the stream. So I definitely say the Cerberus is a really fun tier 10 ship to play, and I think you guys will enjoy it as well. Now, to start off talking about the line, this particular line is more entailed of a submarine hunter line, where they get enhanced ASW airstrikes, which means that you carry one additional airstrike. You get extra range. So normally tier 10 cruisers only have 8-kilometer ASW range. Now this Commonwealth line gets 11-kilometer ASW airstrike range, which is amazingly good. This is pretty much battleship ASW range, but on a cruiser. Which also makes this really good, you get one extra airstrike as well. So you get the extra range on the ASW, and then you get the extra airstrike as well. The downside, though, is you get slightly less damage per attack, but you deal more damage overall if you hit all 3 charges are used. A good tip with these airstrikes is if you are able to use the submarine surveillance, which on the tier 10 is 8 kilometers, and I believe it's 8 kilometers on the tier 9. It goes between 6 through 8 kilometers, starting at tier 6. So you'll get around the 6-kilometer at tier 6, and then it'll go up to about 8 kilometers on the tier 10. And these do last 20 seconds, and just like the submarine surveillance on submarines, you cannot detect submarines when they're on the surface. You can only detect them when they're at periscope and below with the submarine surveillance. But you do get a 5-kilometer hydro, a standard cruiser hydro on the Commonwealth line, which means that you are able to, if you're using a crawling smoke or if you're pushing into a periscoped or a surfaced sub, you can hydro them, and then if they are diving down to where you can no longer hydro them, you can use a submarine surveillance to keep them perma-spotted. Another trick when you're hunting submarines with the Cerberus or other Commonwealth cruisers is that when you're using the airstrikes, you normally want to hit it with one airstrike first, so that it's when it hits, they're forced to DCP, and then you use the 2 depth charges after, so that you're able to get that perma flood or perma fire or that perma oil slick on the surface, so that even though your submarine surveillance is down, you're able to still spot them and see where they're going, which makes it where you get a confirmed kill on a sub. It's pretty much, if you can get a submarine to DCP and then you hit them again and they have a perma oil slick, they're pretty much dead at that point. There's almost nothing they can do at that point. They're absolutely screwed, and it's just an easy submarine kill. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about some basic basic stats or basic perks about this particular line or characteristics. Now, this particular line is considered a heavy cruiser line due to the 203s on the Cerberus. It starts at tier 6 or 7, where it goes from light cruiser to heavy cruiser because of the gun caliber. But even though it is classified as a heavy cruiser, they are pretty much light cruiser armored. So they have heavy cruiser guns, but they are light cruiser armor. They're very squishy hulls, thin armor, and easy to citadel. I'll show the hull whenever I look at the build at the end of the video. So if you guys want to skip to that, I'll be at the end of the video. Now for the Cerberus, it has a 25mm bow and 25mm rear with a very thin, it's about 50mm side citadel armor. It's pretty thin. I'll double check after at the very end. I'll double check, but we'll see. Now, with the armor, you also have above average HE DPM, which is definitely excellent fire starting chance for high tier cruisers. For the Cerberus in particular, it has a 20% fire chance when you have the 2 HE flags. If you don't have the 2 HE flags, it's 18%, but you do have 12 guns, so that is a lot of fire chance potential on this bad boy. The HE damage is also quite decent as well, as you're able to see throughout the video as well. You do a lot of damage with that HE, massive farming. You're gonna do a lot of damage in this thing in a short time, farming battleships, cruisers, anything alike. Consider these shells, they are just gonna pack a wallop. Now, with great great HE shells comes the mediocre AP shells. Now, even though these shells are mediocre, you are able to actually slap. It is very useful against broadside targets. So say you have like a broadside Salem, Des Moines, Minotaur, something, just a cruiser's broadside to you within about, let's say like 10 kilometers, 9 kilometers. You're not, I had trouble citadeling something at like 10 kilometers, but if you're within like 7 or say like 6 or 8 kilometers, around that distance with AP, if they give you broadside at that distance, just slap that AP into them and you'll slap the living crap out of them. You're gonna do so much damage with that AP. I think earlier today, whenever I was playing with, I was fighting a Abuki, and it was about 7 kilometers away, flat broadside of me, trying to get his torps off. I did like a 30k death strike salvo to it, just absolutely citadel. It was so many citadels. It was so beautiful, so beautiful. It was just gorgeous, gorgeous, flat out. Best thing ever seen. Now, moving on from the AP shells, unfortunately, the shells aren't the quickest. You can consider them, the speed of the shells are about 860 meters per second. They aren't the slowest shells, but they're also not the fastest. 860 meters is pretty slow for shells. So that means you're not gonna have the best shell arcs. At the same time, I still find this ship pretty easy to aim distances, so I don't really find it that difficult. I still suggest that this line's a good line for beginners. The crawling smoke gimmick really helps kind of teach the gimmicks, or like teach to keep moving in the smoke, don't just sit still. A lot of people that play smoke cruisers or keys, they don't move in the smoke, which is a really bad habit. So having a crawling smoke really will help players be able to, or help you in this matter, help you be able to learn how to keep moving. Don't just sit still all the time. Being still in smoke is your biggest downfall. You always need to move. You always need to. Always need to. Now, besides having great HE DPM, great submarine surveillance, and enhanced ASW, it also has amazing concealment, which is on par with the Japanese heavy cruisers. The Cerberus, when it's fully built for concealment, has a 10-kilometer concealment. That is really good. It has a 10-kilometer concealment, and it has a 7.3-kilometer smoke fire penalty, which means that when you're in smoke and you're farming, as long as enemies are outside 7.3 kilometers, they are not going to be able to spot you. Now, if they use radar, of course, they're going to spot you because, you know, radar can see through everything. But 7.3 kilometers is that sweet spot for the smoke fire penalty, so make sure everyone is outside of that. Now, when you're outside of smoke, your concealment is 10 kilometers if you have it fully built, so definitely be aware of that. But that is an amazing concealment for a tier 10 cruiser. Definitely above average for how good it is. Now, unfortunately, though, it does have horrible anti-air. It's below average, definitely ineffective at stopping attacks, and you need to definitely rely on your smoke to be safe. If you're fighting tier 8 CVs, you'll do fine in the Cerberus. They'll be able to mostly, it'll definitely hurt them a lot, but it's not going to stop an attack. But tier 10 CVs, yeah, good luck. And it's going to be very painful for you. But that's a lot of issues for a lot of cruisers, is dealing with CVs. It's just a very painful experience overall. Now, moving on, the Cerberus does have very good torpedoes. So does the most of the line. Starting at tier 7, you can stealth torp with the torpedoes. For the Cerberus, it's a 13.5 kilometer torps, and there are 4 on each side, with a decent reload as well. They have long range, respectable damage. Very, very versatile. This whole line is. The whole Commonwealth cruiser line is very versatile in what weapons they have and what you're able to use them, and just overall, it's just a really fun line to play. Very versatile on the damage and the HE, the AP, the Hydro, the submarine surveillance, the torps. Overall, it's just a really good variety of damage that you can do. There's a variety of tools at your disposal. I was trying to think of a good word, and that was pretty much it. Now, again, you do get the standard cruiser Hydro, which is a 5 kilometer Hydro for ships, and a 3.5 kilometer spotting for torps. For the captain nationality, which depends on the ship is recruited to, for example, you can get an Indian captain if you recruit him for Red Fort, and an Aussie captain for Bart. On the Cerberus, it is an Australian ship, so even though you can switch from the Commonwealth flag at the very bottom of the flag section selection in the exteriors, you can switch it from Commonwealth to Australian, so the Cerberus is Australian. Also, a side note, apparently, I did not know this, but the Cerberus is actually a naval base in Australia. Apparently, and I did not know that. I was told that as a information bit from a few of my community members today when I was streaming playing the ship. So thank you guys for that information. I do greatly appreciate it. So moving on from that, let's talk a little bit about the smoke. The crawling smoke starts at tier 5. Again, this whole Commonwealth line starts at tier 1 and it goes all the way down to tier 10. Excuse me. And the crawling smoke starts at tier 5 and it lasts for 2 minutes. Now, the ship will outrun her smoke if you're faster than 12.5 knots. So pretty much you want to stay at quarter speed, never go to half, because if you do, you're going to outrun your smoke and you'll get spotted. So definitely be careful of that. The cooldown starts only after the smoke ends. So pretty much after when the smoke starts, you last for 2 minutes. And then when the smoke is done, you have about a 2-minute cooldown, so good luck. And again, your smoking fire penalty is roughly 7 kilometers. For the Cerberus itself, it's 7.3 kilometers, but the tier 9, 8, 7, 6, and 5 all have different smoke fire penalties. different ones so you guys can look at that whenever it becomes available to be able to be seen. Because today we're just mostly focusing on the Cerberus ship itself. Now, for the playstyle. For the playstyle of this line in particular, I would say it's more of a short through mid-range smoke farming ship. You definitely have to be careful of your firing penalty of 7.3 kilometers. Also have to take note of the long cooldown on their smokes. You definitely require spotting for her playstyle to work properly, so definitely make sure you are supporting your DDs and you're supporting your flank when you are playing this line. As you saw in this particular match, I was doing a really heavy job trying to support my DDs, help support them, and help move up when they were to try to support them. I have more of a, I take RPF on my builds, but of course I have different recommendations for you guys at the end of the video. I have different recommendation to give you guys for builds, because I know not everyone takes RPF, but I personally take RPF in a lot of my more supportive ship builds, where I'm trying to support my DDs and more of my other cruisers as well, trying to be close in, trying to make sure that I'm able to gun down their Ds if I need to, or just keep the pressure off of my Ds so they're able to perma-spot for me while I can just hammer down their team over and over and over and over again. This ship, again, this line is very squishy in the open water, so you definitely want to stay in smoke when possible. And if you saw, I didn't take survivability expert on this ship. Pretty much, if you are seen by a battleship, survivability expert isn't going to help you. And that is the simplest way to put it. Because if you're seen by a battleship, good luck. Good luck. That's all I got to say. Good luck. If you do a good amount of job of dodging and weaving, you will be able to not get dev struck. But if a battleship gets a lucky strike on you, you're done. You're done. You do have above average top speed on the Cerberus and the Commonwealth line. You do also have an average turning radius, but you do not get the British acceleration. That is the most important thing. Even though some of these ships are British and they are British made, you do not get the British acceleration on this line. And you also slow down like a brick. You accelerate slowly and you stop slowly. So definitely be aware of that when you are playing these ships. They are legit bricks. Funny enough, the Cerberus kind of looks like a mini Vermont. Weirdly enough, it kind of looks like a mini Vermont with the triple smokestacks. It kind of does. And once you see that, it's kind of hard to unsee it. But again, like, nothing can be as thick as a Vermont. Like, come on. Like, even though it does look like a mini Vermont, a Vermont could eat like 20 of these things and still be thicker than that. Just saying. Just a little joke. Now, moving on from that, the Commonwealth line is highly effective at hunting submarines. Even though they do need to get close to detect the sub, you still have an 11-kilometer ASW, and you get 3 ASW charges to hit or try to figure out which direction the submarine went. So if you're skilled enough with those ASW airstrikes, you can pretty much guarantee a hit on a sub and just ruin its day, which we all love to do. You do again get a very high fire chance with a nice reload. On the Cerberus, you get a 9-second reload for your guns. If you build into the reload in the module slot, it's a 9-second reload. And then if you build in the top grade gunner for your captain, that will then go down even more by 10%, so it goes down to like 8.1 second reload. And having 203s with the 34mm HE pen, it just goes and goes and goes. You get more and more and more damage. It's like, oh, so nice, just amazing. Again, you can stealth torpedo as well. The Cerberus does have a 13.5 kilometer torpedo. torpedoes, 4 on each side. So as you're backing away, you're able to, as you're kiting away, I mean, you're able to do more damage. Get that perma fires, get those perma floods, get all that damage. Just let it go. All the damage, all the time. Yeah. All that good stuff. Oh yeah, all that good stuff. We love it. We love that damage. But I definitely say overall, I definitely think this line's a solid line, especially if you hate submarines. It does require some care to avoid being blown up by BBs, and you definitely need spotting support to work. But it has great potential in the right hands. Again, I definitely recommend this line for beginners and experts alike. It's a really fun line, very versatile. You'll definitely have a ball. You have fun hunting down submarines, which we all love to do. Kill them, blow them up. But don't ride them. You don't ride those. But anywho, at this point, let's talk about how you get them in the early access. The Commonwealth ships will be available through the early access for patch 13.2, which will be starting the 13th of March. If you're in April or May looking at this video of 2024, then the line is already out, so you don't have to worry about it at that point. It's already been out. Now, if you're trying to get these ships, you can get them by spending event tokens. Every ship will be available through the consecutive bundle, with higher tier ships being unlocked later and for higher costs using these tokens. The tier 10 Cerberus can be attained at the end of the bundle, but it requires an additional 20,000 doubloons on top of all the tokens, so I don't really recommend getting her. You can wait the 3 months until she goes into the tech tree if you want her. The tier 9 encounter can be obtained in random bundles, but I don't recommend it unless she is in your first bundle. Now again, every time these early access events come up, I say just grind the event tokens for free. Don't need to spend money on them. There's gonna be tokens available when you're just going through the battle pass in 13.2. So just use those tokens to get a head start on the tech tree line, so that whenever the ships do come out of early access, you're able to just already have the base XP ground to be able to unlock the next ship in the list, and pretty much just easy sailing all the way up to the tier 10. Enjoy yourself a nice Cerberus. But anywho, at this point of the video, I'm going to switch it over so we're able to look at the hull and the builds. So let me just switch it over real quick. All right, so time to look at the build and the hull of the Cerberus, as I was talking about earlier. So earlier there is 25 millimeter bow and stern, and there is it's a 32 millimeter side with a little armor belt of 152. So my bad for that earlier. 32 millimeter side, 30 millimeter deck armor there with a 16 millimeter deck. There is a little plate armor right here of the 30 mils we were talking about, the 32, 30, 32 right there. Now this is the Citadel right here, a little bit above the water. This is 38 millimeters, as I was saying earlier. You are very, very, very likely to get Citadel'd while playing this ship. That's why I was saying battleships are very likely to Citadel you, in as well as heavy cruisers or even light cruisers. If you're showing your broadside right here like this, there is no question they're going to be able to Citadel you here, so definitely be careful on where or how you show your broadside. Moving on from there, let's talk about the build. I have a few builds to talk about today. I have my own personal one, then I have 2 other builds as well, but I'm gonna show you guys the 2 builds that I recommend first. Pretty much for modules, I would go with main armament, the Hydro Cruiser Surge modification, aiming systems, propulsion, concealment, and reload. I have tried using range mod on this thing where it goes up to about 20 something kilometers, but I just feel like the 18.5 is plenty enough range for how this ship is played. If you want to do range mod, you can, but as far as what I've seen, reload is plenty enough. Now, if you do want to build into consider more of a DPM build, you can go into steering gears instead of concealment, and I'll be showing that build in a second here. Now, my personal build, I run this, But the build that I would recommend, instead of doing that, normally how you would do it first is you would do grease the gears first, and then you do consumable enhancement. Then you would do superintendent. Then you would do concealment. After the concealment expert, you would then do top grade gunner. And after that, you would then do adrenaline rush. Now, after this, you can either do survivability expert if you're wanting that, if you want extra HP. But I was saying before, even though you can get a little bit more health, again, if you get absolutely smacked by a battleship, you're done. That 4,500 HP is not going to help you. So a lot of time in this ship, it's not worth to take that little extra 4,500 HP, and it's better just to build into something else. So a lot of the time, I've been recommending people to take, you can take the demolition expert here for a little bit more fire HE, and then you could do consumable specialist and then gun feeder this way. Or if you want to do it this way, you don't need gun feeder, you can have last stand instead. Since a lot of the time you won't be switching too much between HE and AP, but this is more of like a tank build. Not tank, but more of a support build where you'll be able to use all of your consumable with that 10 kilometers. You can build it this way. Now, if you're trying to do more of a DPM build, you can do it more on, now you can build it this way. I'll show it in 1 second. If you're doing more of a DPM build, it's pretty much the exact same build, but instead of building here and these here, you would then build into heavy HE and SAP and the consumable specialist like this. And this is how you would build it for if you're wanting to go more for DPM. Now, if you want to go all the way in DPM, you can take the demolition expert instead of the consumable enhancement if you want to go all the way for the DPM. But again, these are just recommendations. You guys can build it however you want. But I'm just throwing out some ideas for you guys to build it yourself. Now, if you do build it this way, you are going to have a concealment of 11.5. But again, after this, you are going to be going back and, of course, switching from concealment to steering gears. So you're a little bit more maneuverable. And your new concealment is going to be 12.8 kilometers. So definitely take note of that when you are playing with this new build. The DPM build, again, you're being a little bit more, you're more DPM focused rather than survivability. This is definitely more of a skill, this build for more experienced players. If you're newer or more basic to the game, or trying this line for the first time and you're trying to learn the ropes, I would definitely say go with the more basic build just to get the hang of things. Be a little bit more on the safer side. Then you can work into being more of the DPM build that you'll enjoy playing. But again, I do really enjoy this build. It's a lot of fun to play. I have had some people suggest doing the anti-air and ASW expert skill as well, since if you are getting any sort of CV matches at all, you are able to get 50% faster reload time for your ship consumables and reload time, so you get your smoke back quicker, your heal back quicker, your hydro back quicker, and your submarine surveillance. This also makes it where your depth charges do more damage, your continuous and your anti-air does more damage as well with this by plus 25%. So you get an anti-air buff, depth charge buff, you get pretty much anything to do with the CVs or subs, you get a buff to it. You can take this as well if you're seeing a lot of CV matches, but for, well, actually ranked actually sees CVs too, so this could actually be pretty nice and ranked as well potentially if you want to take this skill. But it's a very costly skill. Like this skill and RPF are both personal preference skills. That's why I don't really recommend my personal build. Like my personal build, I love building into RPF. I love being a support player, being more like supporting my DDs, being closer in when I'm able to. I like being a really good support player to my team. So a lot of time on my cruisers that I'm playing closer into the enemy or near to caps, or where I'm more likely to deal with submarines or DDs or having to hunt them down, I take RPF for that particular reason. Now, on cruisers that are further away, I don't build RPF in them. Like Noveski or like Goliath. I'm trying to think, like Hindenburg. There's a lot of cruisers that are longer distance. You're not going to really get that much engagement with the actual DDs. It's going to be harder to actually get to do anything with them. Normally, it's not going to really do it. So you don't need a radio location with them. But since you have a 10-kilometer concealment, I personally enjoy using RPF, but again, it's a very heavy preference. I would rather recommend the two builds I gave you guys before, since those are more of like the meta. My build's more of just a personal preference. But again, that is today's video on the Cerberus and the new Commonwealth line. If you guys have any questions or concerns, definitely let me know in the comments down below. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank everybody for joining the WoW's Commander and the... Oh, damn, I forgot my own membership name. I am absolutely terrible. Thank you everyone that's joined the One of Us and the WoW's Commander memberships. That does help me tremendously with my income. So thank you guys very much for supporting me in my endeavors here on YouTube. I know that over time I haven't done as many videos. I've kind of cut back a little bit. I do apologize for that, but if you guys have any ideas or any suggestions you want me to try to do in the future, definitely let me know. I'm always down for new video ideas that I could potentially work on when I have time. I do always stream on Twitch, so if you guys want to check me out on Twitch, I do try to stream daily on there. It's just OverlordBou. I definitely appreciate you guys coming over there and hanging out sometime, and let me know what you guys think of the videos that I do. It does help cheer me up a lot, and it does make me really happy when you guys do. But anywho, thank you guys for watching today's video. If you guys have any questions, let me know, and thank you all for being here and supporting the channel and the community. Talk to y'all later. Deuces.